Welcome to Pioneer, the podcast series for serious innovators, brought to you by Raise. Here, we talk to innovative entrepreneurs, CEOs, scientists and policymakers about innovation.
My pleasure today to welcome Stephen Page from Advanced Veterinary Therapeutics. Stephen is a vet by background and has experience working for animal health companies in the US in clinical development areas. He recently founded two Australian companies, Neoculi and Luoda Pharma, and Stephen is CEO of both. Stephen is also director at Advanced Veterinary Therapeutics, which is his consulting company. Mm-hmm. Welcome, Stephen. Thank you for joining us today.
No, pleasure.
So, Stephen, tell us about Advanced Veterinary Therapeutics.
Okay, now Advanced Veterinary Therapeutics is my consulting company, and it emerged after I had worked in various roles in the animal health pharmaceutical industry for several decades. When I left those roles, which involved sort of clinical development and technical services, etc., I decided just to use that particular set of skills that I'd developed to just become a consultant to the pharmaceutical industry and to other sort of aspects of the veterinary world.
Because that wouldn't be a normal pathway from veterinary science into pharma, would it? I mean, people would go more into vet surgery and things like that.
Yeah, well, I suppose after I graduated, I did work for 5 years just at a university mixed practice and then joined industry, the pharmaceutical industry, just their animal health division, developing new products.
Right.
And then when that sort of period with a number of companies came to an end, I started my own consulting company so I could continue working with the pharmaceutical industry. And the advantage there was that rather than working for one company, I could now sort of consult to the whole spectrum of companies,
okay,
which sort of benefited me because I was in the middle and could learn and gain experiences from many other businesses.
Fabulous. Not many of you folk around, I wouldn't have thought.
No, certainly the animal health industry is very, very diminutive compared with big pharma.
Right.
So we're probably something like less than a tenth of the size.
Right.
Animal health companies that are part of big pharma, normally their total sales in any one year would be just lost in the rounding.
Okay.
So they're pretty small,
right,
but growing, I think.
Right. Yeah.
As people get more and more pets and are willing to spend more and more money on their health and welfare, then so the animal health industry is growing to meet those needs.
And that would apply across agriculture and the bigger farming picture as well, I assume.
Yeah, well, it does. I think the change in that industry has probably been from livestock, which are principally there to produce food, into companion animals. Maybe 20 years ago, the majority of the sales and the majority of products in the animal health business were for livestock and food production. Now that's starting to change, and probably the majority of the sales and certainly the vast majority of the new products are actually for dogs and cats and horses and other companion animal species.
Okay, interesting. So that kind of explains the journey from vet into pharma. How about then into director? How did that come around?
Yeah, well, I suppose I'd worked for a long time in developing new products for companies, and what I'd become sort of much in tune to was what the needs are of the market, what the needs were in sort of protecting the health of animals, and I could see what was missing.
Right.
And developed some ideas of my own and decided, well, this could be the basis of a new company.
Okay.
So it was really just taking those ideas and developing them and being able to persuade a couple of colleagues to invest in a company that got established.
Does that mean you have to have your own research lab and all of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, normally you'd think so, but in fact, and if you look at Big Pharma, I mean, they've got major, millions of dollars that they invest, billions of dollars in some cases in research and development and facilities and people. But in fact, our model is having a virtual pharmaceutical company. So we have no labs, minimum number of people. What we do is just find those that can provide the work that we need, and often they're at universities, and we've just become very careful at selecting the people that work best with us to develop those ideas.
Okay, so you kind of give them a brief and a...
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So we sort of manage the projects, but we rely on sort of the expertise that others have developed for, their whole careers.
Which is a pathway that Turnbull government's pushing more and more of, isn't it? That industry-university link. So you're already there anyway.
Here we are, yeah. So I think I'd like to think that we'd influence that, but I think it just sort of validates that our model is one that others are picking up as well.
Yeah, excellent. You're clearly a true innovator. So what are the skills and attributes that you've brought from your former career to be a successful innovator in the area of vet science you're in? And perhaps explain a little bit more about what that area is, what some of the products that you've developed.
Well, I suppose my particular area is in developing new antimicrobial agents. At the moment there's a global crisis in public health, particularly, which is due to the fact that we've run out of antibiotics to treat bacterial infections in humans. And so one of my companies, Neoculi, has actually identified a new molecule that has never been developed as an antibacterial before. And we're looking at it and its analogues to try and fill that particular pressing need for human health, and also exploring what opportunities there might be in animals as well. But I think having had that experience working with Big Pharma and developing ideas, I suppose, concepts from right through from the idea to the marketplace, I developed an understanding of where all the obstacles are along the way, the risks of that particular process. And worked out how you can actually maybe reduce a lot of those risks. So rather than investing sort of hundreds of millions of dollars and not having anything at the end of it, we can invest maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars and get to a point where we have something that maybe we could then sell to Big Pharma to take through the final steps of the process.
Right, okay. But there's two, or more, but if we simplify it down, there's two parts to this. There's the science and the idea, and then there's bringing the idea to the market. It seems to me you're crossing both of those, which is unusual.
Yeah, unusual, but normally that's addressed by having a team of people with those skills. But I've just been very fortunate to sort of get a macro look of that process and be able to identify the people that can help you go from one obstacle and overcome it to the next. And I think that's something that really you only gain through experience.
Right. But so what turns you on? Is it the science and the idea, or is it making it, applying it and getting it into the market, or it's all exciting for you?
Yeah, well, I think it's all driven by the need, and here the need is sort of to fill a void in new products that can save lives. It's quite exciting and rewarding to know that you're actually trying to solve that particular problem, and then looking at every stage from that idea through to the end, just working out, can that hurdle be overcome? But at the same time, realising that you can't be too married to a particular idea. If some things are not going to work, you can't force it, because at the end of the day, it has to work in the marketplace. Yeah. So trying to identify things that are going to fail very early is also, a skill or an experience, I suppose, that's invaluable as well. Okay.
Well, perhaps can you give us an example of something that you've taken to the marketplace that's been successful?
Yeah, well, in fact, apart from the drug discovery company, which is Neoculi, the more recent startup, Luoda Pharma, and Luoda is a Finnish word which means innovation. So we thought that.
I wondered where that came from. I thought it might have been a family name or something.
Yeah, no. We sort of searched for a name that sort of we wanted to sort of use to lead us along, I suppose.
Right.
But we did identify, and this particular company is more involved in development of products to meet unmet needs. And we saw a need with a particular medicine used in dogs that had heart failure. It was very difficult to administer because the dosage forms that were available were solid, tablets and capsules. and very difficult and stressful to administer them.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is stress an animal trying to medicate it for its heart failure. We were able to develop an alternative dosage form, a liquid, which doesn't sound like a significant step, but it was using an active ingredient that was not known to be readily formulated. So unimpeded, with a large history with this molecule, we just sort of stumbled forward and came up with an idea which we were able to put to our patent attorneys.
Right. And
it's sort of going through the national phase at the moment. We're also able to license that product.
I was going to ask, so did you involve Big Pharma in that, or is this something?
Yeah. Once we had the idea, and we developed the formulation, and we had a plan for meeting the regulatory requirements first here in Australia. We were able to sell that idea or license it to one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. And it was actually approved in Australia a couple of months ago, and it's now on sale and treating animals with congestive heart failure.
Oh, fabulous. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay. So, clearly with your background, your success, and that, as you said, that macro view, what are the trends you're seeing in the scientific innovation in Australia?
I think it's particularly challenging in Australia. I think there are pros and cons for being in a small country. I think in a small country sometimes it allows ideas that would otherwise be just sort of gobbled up, I suppose, in just the mass of people trying to get attention. So it's easier to come up with an idea and develop it in the initial phases. But trying to get support for that idea, I think, is particularly difficult in Australia.
Right.
And I think, the government's talking about innovation packages and stimulating it, but I think we're yet to see that that's actually making an impact. I mean, I know I struggle all the time to get any funding for some of our ideas. The sort of grant process through ARC and other sort of government sort of facilities to get grants is extraordinarily competitive, and
be very human focused as well, wouldn't it? I mean, animal health would be a very low second, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's a small part of it, but the ARC, the Australian Research Council, sort of, they tend to focus on things that aren't human, and then the NHMRC might focus on human things.
Okay.
But the total budgets and the are decreasing, and the competitiveness is increasing. So it's very, very difficult to get an idea and develop it in Australia unless you can attract the attention of Big Pharma, for instance.
Yeah.
And that's why that example with the congestive heart failure drug was very important for us, because that gave us some sort of stake in the ground. We could actually tell potential investors, we could show them that we had actually been successful in taking an idea through to the marketplace.
Yeah.
And in fact,
that'd be very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. But we were very fortunate there. But I think it's very difficult without that stake in the ground to get attention. It's that classical catch-22. You sort of need experience and credibility before anyone will invest in you. And how do you get that experience and credibility?
Well, as you would know, it's not an uncommon story for any type of innovator. One of the hardest things is simply getting access to capital, and once you can get past that and have a track record, it just apparently gets easier. Not easy, but easier.
Yeah, and you usually only hear about the success stories, and they're very much a small tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
A lot of people struggling, and I think the position in Australia is significant struggle for many.
Yeah. I think I've heard a number of it, at least 10 failures to 1 success, something like that.
Yeah. Now we dream of a success rate that high.
So given all of those obstacles, clearly the passion's there. Clearly, if you can break through all of the barriers, it's fabulous. But there are a lot of obstacles. It is a lot of hard work. It could be years. What advice would you give to budding entrepreneurs listening to this? Not necessarily those in animal health, but just generally entrepreneurs.
Well, I think I think there are a lot of innovative people out there, and maybe what is necessary for ultimate success is to know what the market's going to be at the end of the day.
Yep.
So, as a scientist, I never like to concentrate too much on the return on the investment, but obviously that's absolutely critical to any success. So, really, just having an idea and a realistic idea of what the market opportunity is. And not being so close to your idea that you can't sort of vary it in any way. So being very objective and realistic and quite ruthless, I suppose, about exactly what your innovation means. And I think knowing that if you are inherently innovative, you're not just going to have one idea in your life. And one idea might lead to another, etc. And just keep at it. And eventually that idea will meet an unmet need that's big enough for someone to want to invest in.
Yeah, and I'm just reflecting on your earlier, on your model, which is to link up with universities in a partnership type. And I think Wozniak and Jobs and other partnerships that have been built. I'm guessing in there somewhere you need to find good partners, and need not do it yourself and be obviously you have to protect your intellectual property, but at the same time you need to bring in the right people around you.
Yes, and I think actually that's probably one of the most critical elements of the whole process. People in universities still aren't inherently in tune with taking ideas through to the marketplace. So we've had, I'm not saying difficulty, but it's been a very selective process to find those with whom we can work closely, and we both share the same vision for what we want to achieve. So getting that team together is, once you have them, it's fantastic, but finding them can be very, very difficult.
Okay. Well, thanks, Stephen. That's been really, really interesting. Is there an end game for you, or is just this is a life journey? Are you thinking I'm an entrepreneur who's selling my business down the track, or it's just a life journey, a passion to find problems and solve them?
Yeah, well, I must admit I don't think of myself as an entrepreneur. In both of the startups, I have colleagues that may be less scientists and more investors. So I think we actually have this happy balance of the entrepreneur and the science nerd who just likes to try and solve problems. So I think that's a really good relationship, and it works very, very, very well. I think the end game sort of inevitably is to continue to, solve problems, but maybe once the company gets to a certain stage, then inevitably someone will want to acquire it, and that actually gives us an opportunity then to maybe solve bigger problems.
Okay.
So can't see not solving problems. It's sort of an affliction I have.
Well, you're still a relatively young man. So
nice of you to say.
Fabulous to meet you. I've enjoyed the chat. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today for the Raise Innovator Series. If you would like to know more about today's topic, please email us raise@raise.com.au.